there's no Google Maps for life, right?
That's real.
At least you're not pre-programmed.
Right.
You know, someone's every once in a while got to go, hey man, try this.
Yes.
Or hey, look over here. Or hey, think about this. And that can be so helpful.
We're constantly evolving as men. I tell men that I work with, especially younger men, don't put a cap on manhood. We're constantly evolving and growing. I'm not a grandfather yet, but when that happens, I'm going to lean into some other men who are grandfathers to learn. But as soon as we put that cap on, we can't grow anymore. And that's one of the things about us as men. We want to master every aspect of life. And to me, it's always a blessing to be the student and to constantly learn. One of the worst positions to be in is always the teacher. You know, I miss being a student and learning and growing. And I believe that's the blessing, one of the greatest blessings in life. And when you remove that as a man, you can't grow anymore. And so when I lost my best friend in 2004, dropped dead on a job that we had contracted. I was a tile setter. He was just sweeping the floor. Big D was perfect shape, one of only 4 men in Powerhouse Gym, Highland Park, Michigan, who could press the 200-pound dumbbells. Cyborg. Cyborg. He would rep 315, 20 reps on the bench. And he was sweeping, and thankfully I wasn't there. But my best friend who contracted the job and subbed me as the tile setter was there. Daryl was sweeping, and all of a sudden he just fell over. And my friend is a former police officer. He was trying to give him CPR. He wouldn't revive. Raced to the hospital, and to see my best friend, super like strong, massive physique, lifeless. I was just like you, Jocko. It was like the scene in The Matrix when Morpheus thought Neo was dead. He was just looking at the screen like, this can't be true. When I lost my best friend, I never got in an argument with him, our entire friendship. I met him at Powerhouse. I said, hey, I want to look like that guy. This is who I need to hang with. And he loved music. And so since I was producing, it was a natural kindred there. And he became like a big brother. And I was very depressed for, I would say, months, man. I would call his phone just to hear his voicemail because they hadn't turned it off yet. And so I definitely would like to read your book because I find myself in the gym because he was my gym partner. I stopped lifting weights, man. There was no reason to go. And that's when I realized it wasn't the weight training, it was the camaraderie that we like, especially in martial arts, jiu-jitsu, whatever. It's the camaraderie that we really love. And to lose that, man, I remember I was trying to do, what do you call it, the squats where you hold the dumbbell in front of you. Goblet squats. Yeah. And I picked up the way that I could normally do fairly easy. Got overwhelmed with emotion, sat down on the bench and just wept bitterly thinking about Daryl like he's not here anymore. And I know if he could like be there in that moment, he'd say, hey man, I'm good, but keep pushing through. And I was able to work through that. But thankfully, I'm a comprehensive man. I don't fear men seeing me shed tears anymore. I grew up where you had to wear the facade and you had to be tough. You had to practice looking hard. But I found that the majority of us as men, we repressed the anger, the trauma, and then we became thugs. And I made an acronym for it, traumatized human, unable to grieve. And this is why you get bumped into, you're ready to fight. You can't process your emotions in real time so that you can basically keep yourself in an advantageous position. And I, at that moment, I realized like, hey, Big D, you know, he's not here, but I wasn't allowing myself to have new friends, man. And I realized like, wait a minute, there's more men just like me who need men like me. And I allowed myself to open up and have that. But I definitely would want to get your book, man, because, you know, when you're always seeming like everyone's everything, you're like, man, who tows the tow truck? You know what I mean? And I had to learn first and foremost that it was God for one, because with the heaviest things that I deal with, most of my friends were like, dude, I can't take some of the trauma you've been through day to day, you know, because everyone has their own problems. But to realize that there are men around, they may not be as big as the big tow truck that pulls me, But they're there. They're the guys that, hey, look, I can change the tire. I can get your oil changed. I'm here for you. And as men, we got to be open for that support, man.
Yeah. Let's get into this book a little bit, just to kind of go into your background and growing up and stuff. So this is the book, Cry Like a Man. You say, it was 1953 when my mother, Etta Marie, married a man named Sinclair Sr., a raging alcoholic who beat her when he needed an excuse to vent, which was often. There in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, she gave birth to my two brothers, Sinclair Jr. and Larry. They were her emotional refuge until they also became targets of their father's impulsive anger. Though his physical abuse would come and go, usually with the contents of the bottle in his hand, the mental wounds he inflicted sank deeper than his fists could ever hope to reach. For 9 long years, they endured his random cruelty. So that's kind of how it started off. Your mother eventually, and again, get this book. It's a great book. I'm going to kind of hit some of the wave tops. Your mother eventually gets the courage to leave, files for divorce, and then she met your dad, Oliver Wilson Jr. They get married in 1967, moved to Detroit in December of that year. And so now you get your brothers, and it seemed like they were a little bit kind of like opposites.
Completely.
Is that an accurate statement? So Larry was like a social butterfly. Yeah. Sinclair is like very serious and focused. And then your mom gets pregnant with you, 1969. She gets pregnant with you in the winter. You're born in August 21st, 1970.
Yes, sir.
So, and then you got Sinclair, and again, it's really cool to read the book. You got Sinclair, who's smart. He's studying hard. Everyone thinks he's going to go and become the boardroom somewhere. He's going to be very successful. Larry, on the other hand, is into music. Mm-hmm. He's playing music. He's making music. You say he was fluent in melody.
Yes. Yes. He actually, his high school, he went to Central in Detroit, Michigan. He created the first marching band, from what I was told. I did a lot of research when writing that book, and I have a picture of him as the band major. And so Larry was definitely, everyone wanted to be around him, which is why the drug dealers at the time wanted to use his influence to push drugs. And when he wanted to get out, there was no way out. And I was interested when I was writing that chapter about my brother's father. Sinclair said he wished I would have told more because how evil he was. Like, I said, well, bro, I can't just, spend the whole chapter on it. But he told me that, I believe I shared it in there, that his father would slap them with the flat sides of butcher knives at the dinner table. Would randomly shoot his gun in the house. And that's just, from what my brother told me, is just scratching the surface of what he had to endure and Larry had to endure. And so as a result of that, my brother had to deal with a lot of trauma, man. It was unresolved, Could you imagine a father just beating your mother senseless like a sack of meat, And so much so, I remember my brother, I said, you don't want a family? And because my brother's very attractive, the women like Sinclair. And he says, I want to kill my father. And the best way to do it is not continue his lineage. That was so heavy for me when he said that. And just to see that my brother was able to make, he's 70 years old now. And I praise God for him, because he's the one who feared for my life. Because when Larry died, he said it felt like I was reincarnated, like Larry reincarnated in me. The attitude, the anger, everyone wanting to hang with me. So Sinclair was the brother.
Music too.
Yeah,
right?
There you go. That's a great one. And he would take me to see a pastor at like 7 years old just to get anointed every Wednesday because he feared me. He feared for my life. And I got in some things and could have lost my life probably 3 or 4 times. But Sinclair is the main reason I would say I'm where I am now. His influence, he wasn't as preachy as he was one who modeled it. But for what he's gone through, like intergenerational trauma is really real. It gets in our DNA. And my mother, all of her siblings, after my grandfather's beating and lynching, I would say 4 of them developed dementia, because the brain isn't meant to hold on to all of this anguish and distress and trauma. And when it happens, eventually you break down. And my mother had a mental breakdown twice. And at that moment I said, man, I don't want to ever hold on to what I've been through. I want to let this go so that I could stop this intergenerational trauma that has happened to our family.